This week is Science Week on the 10-Minute Teacher, sponsored by Legends of Learning. Stay tuned at the end of the show to learn more about legendsoflearning.com for your grade 3 through 8 science classroom. Flipping Awesome Science, episode 273.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Hey, let's do some flipping awesome science with Marc Seigel. Marc, first of all, in your bio, you talk about being Johnny Crayons. What is that?
So Johnny Crayons came a couple years ago. A friend of mine, we were teaching together. We're both very non-traditional teachers. Across the hall from us was a very traditional teacher, one of those guys who, phenomenal educator, but he stood behind a podium. That's where the bell rang. That's where he was, the whole block. One day he just walks over across the hall to my friend and says to him, I don't know what's going on with all this Johnny Crayons noise stuff, but you got to keep it down around here. And we just laughed hysterically. And we kind of take the Johnny Crayons as the non-traditional, the energetic, the full energy in the classroom. And I describe it as there was a meme going around a couple years ago about this little elementary kid, and he's got this crayon grip in his fist, and he's scribbling furiously at this picture. His eyes are wide, his teeth are clenched. And I said, that's the Johnny Crayons. When you attack a project, when you attack an assignment so voraciously that you're putting all your energy and passion to it, that's a Johnny Crayons. And I want nothing but them in my classroom.
When you have an awesome, engaging day, describe what that would look like in your science classroom.
So I run a flipped classroom, and my students work asynchronously. So what I do is I give them all the information and materials they need for an entire unit, and then I let them run and play with the different activities depending on where they are, their abilities, and how well they're grabbing onto the concepts. So kind of think of it like a whole bunch of stations all over the classroom. Some kids are working independently. Some kids are working collaboratively with someone else that they're friends with or they're working well with. Some kids are doing labs. Some kids are working in one-on-one or small group settings with me as a teacher. And when I'm not working with one kid, I'm floating around like a butterfly all over the classroom, trying to get to every group, trying to check in with students at all times. So it's kind of like a whirlwind of learning going on in my classroom at any given moment.
So give us a science concept that you'd be teaching and what the different kids would be doing so we can kind of have a way to envision this, because it does sound like chaos, huh?
Absolutely, yeah. For example, so I was a chemistry teacher and I taught this section on gas laws. And gas laws talks about like how gases behave when different things happen to them. You change the pressure, you change the temperature, whatever it's going to be. So in some cases, I might have, a couple students working off on the side with some digital probes where they're moving syringes in and out into a pressure sensor, and all that information is being graphed onto a computer as an inquiry assignment. So as they pull out on the syringe or push in on the syringe, they're changing the volume of that gas, and then the computer's measuring all the pressure. So I've got a Chromebook set up where the students are graphing all the information into a Google Sheet. On another section of the room, I'll have students on personalized whiteboards, and those whiteboards are about 16 by 24 inches in size, wrapped in neon duct tape. So I'll have students working on quiz questions or homework questions that I've got placed at my desk. I don't give homework. I don't give traditional homework. Anything the students work on at home typically is like lab questions that they didn't complete during class. These kids are working here in my classroom because when they struggle, I want me to be around to help them through whatever struggles they're having. Then I might have another students working off on the side watching some instructional videos off my YouTube channel. It depends on where you are in the classroom depending on what's going on. I might have kids sitting on a lab bench over on one side. I used to have a girl who used to like to hide under the lab bench. She kind of made it her own little cubby hole because she was a little bit of an introvert, and the chaos of the room, didn't lend itself for her to be focused. So she'd tuck herself underneath, and that's what she would stay for the whole block.
So Marc, how hard is this to plan and set up?
So this takes years of doing it.
No, but now nobody's going to want to do it.
No. Actually, I was just talking to a group of teachers this weekend at a conference. And one of the things I said to them, I said, what a lot of people forget is when they read about a flipped classroom, they're seeing it from people who have been doing it for several years, and they get overwhelmed. And they say, well, I can't do that. And I'm like, no, you can't, because I've done this over 7 years. So the best thing to do is start small and start with something you're confident with. So my very first flip lesson was in the easiest unit of the entire year. I planned it all out. I actually storyboard everything at home. I have a big whiteboard at home, and I lay out all the topics, and I link them to where my videos are going to go with arrows, and then I connect the assignments into them. And by making it visual in front of me, it helped give me a nice, neat plan for my students. And I give them an assignment chart, which helps keep them organized throughout the entire unit as well.
So are you more the in-flip? So when they're watching your videos, it's in class, it's not at home?
Mine is both. I leave it up to the students as to how they want to do it. So there are some students who are very active in athletics. They have a part-time job. They're doing tons of things at home. Maybe even internet access is limited. So I never wanted to force my students to always do the videos at home. So I leave them the option. So one year I had these 5 boys who used to get together on the weekend and watch all the videos for the entire unit in one afternoon. And then they'd come to class on Monday with all their questions ready. They'd pound out all the assignments over the course of 5 days, and they would take the test on Friday or maybe on the following Monday, and they were done. And that's the way they liked it. I had other students who would come to class, they'd walk in, pull out their device, watch the first video, do a quiz or do the homework assigned to that video, watch the second video. And so they had that kind of routine. So I let the kids be flexible in how they structured the class.
If you could spare beginning science flippers one mistake, what would it be?
Oh, relying on the video too much. So my very first fail, massive fail, was I gave the assignment to watch the video for homework, and then my lesson was entirely based on the students' notes from that video. 21 kids in the class, 5 kids actually watched the video. And I went, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So, and that's like rookie mistake number 1, like not even about flipping. Like that's what you do your first year teaching, is when you put all your emphasis on the kids doing the homework and then they didn't do the homework. Yeah. So I ended up having to reteach the entire lesson that I put in the video via lecture, because that's the best. I had to get the information across. So those 5 kids who did the video now sat there bored for 30 minutes while I'm going through a lesson. And my video is only 10 minutes, but it takes that much longer in an actual lecture. So the best thing you can do is to learn from my failure. The next time I did that, when the same thing happened to me, what I did is I brought the 5 kids up who did their assignment. I brought them up to the front of the room. I sent the other 16 kids to the back of the room to watch the video. I then gave special extra reinforcement to those kids, sort of as a reward for watching the video. So I hit them with extra problems, some extra questions, and they got small group learning with me. At that point, everyone was done with the video, and then we came back as a whole group and did a large group activity. Yeah. So the kids who didn't do their homework still got the information that they were supposed to get, but they didn't get the extra reinforcement that they would have had they done the homework. And that really changed how my class functioned.
If you could have one thing that every teacher could do right out of the gate, what would it be?
Remember that it's about maximizing your face-to-face time with your students. So it doesn't matter if you use videos or if you use document-based questions or reading passages or anything. It doesn't matter what you use. It's about when you sit down and think about that lesson, are you maximizing your face-to-face time with your students? If the most effective thing you're doing is hands-on learning and small group work, then make sure your lessons look like that in the classroom. If you're a phenomenal educator where you can stand up and lecture and the kids are engaged and it's amazing and things get it, then do that. Like, you have to make your classroom your space. So don't look at the articles from John Bergman or Aaron Sams or anyone else, or don't even look at the book and say, oh, I have to copy Mark. Do it what works best in your class.
Yeah, and I use the in-flip, and I'll use videos sometimes, but then today I was talking about the difference between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3, and we had a fascinating discussion, and that's the way we did it. So it doesn't have to always be the same, and use those videos in a way that really accents your learning. So science teachers out there, and all teachers, we've got some flipping awesome science ideas. Follow Mark on Twitter and get out there and be Johnny Crayons. I want to be Johnny Crayons. I don't think I want to be behind a podium. Legends of Learning has amazing game-based science experiments for students in grades 3 through 8, aligning with next generation science and select state standards. Go to coolcatteacher.com/science and sign up for your free account now. Whether it is earth science, life science, or physical science, you can reinforce, reteach, and take kids further as they play the science game at legendsoflearning.com. And thank you, Legends of Learning, for sponsoring Science Week this week on the 10-Minute Teacher.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.